Hello and welcome back to Language Sofa Podcast. I'm Ben Levi, and today on Language Sofa Podcast, we are thrilled to welcome Pierce Kiembi, a dedicated football coach, MFL educator, polyglot, and of course, he is also the co-founder of Football Lingo, an innovative platform that combines the universal passion for football with language learning, making language acquisition more engaging and relatable for students, and obviously for footballers to learn language skills when joining clubs overseas or moving to the UK. His unique approach and commitment to integrating cultural interests into education is something really unique and inspiring to many young people to engage with languages. Pierce, welcome to Language Sofa.
Hi Ben, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I look forward to our conversation.
Nice one. So yeah, and I've been looking into football lingo, and it's such a unique concept. And I'd love to know what inspired you to combine, firstly, language learning with football. And I'd love to hear about your journey.
hmm yeah, football lingo is a concept that actually it was uh, a friend of mine, Mark, who's probably one of my best friends in football to date, and he came up with the concept. He's had so many great ideas, which have all gone to the graveyard because he never followed up on them. But when he told me about this one, it was a night where we met in a bar. And I said to him, "Listen, this idea can't die. We have to make something of it." And at the
That's where
beginning,
every good idea comes from, meeting in a bar, right?
is that what they say?
I don't know. I made that up on the spot.
Well, this one came in a bar, yeah. Um, uh, and we are both coaches. We are both football people. So you know, uh, to us, we at the beginning it was more of a case of, do you know what, how can we make some form of passive income? Can we make a book or an ebook, that we can in which we can incorporate terms and phrases and then translate them into other languages
hmm
for other cultures to have, and from there I said, how about we make it an app instead? It's 2020. Why not do that instead?
Yeah.
And
So mid lockdown too. God, that's tough.
well,
Or
in
just
fact, you know
after.
what? No, no, no. It was before. It was before
Yeah.
2020. I think it was in
Really.
2019.
Yeah.
And then conveniently, lockdown came around,
Yeah.
and we had 3 months to just knuckle down and day and night, just start working on this app. And because everybody, the whole world was at a standstill, we knew that there would be other coaches in the world, that probably wouldn't be practicing at that moment in time
Yeah.
and would probably be free to help us on that project. So we recruited coaches and football experts around the world to help us with the project. So everything that is on the app is completely human translated, and it's also in colloquial terms how they would say it, in their own culture, in their own language. So yeah, no AI, no machine
Yeah.
translations, all real people. And yeah, that's pretty much how the idea was born. And a little after us launching the app, we were approached by somebody who runs events at schools, and at that point we thought, there are so many people, so many young boys, especially in MFL, that don't necessarily like learning languages. How about we take this into schools and try to use football as a vehicle to inspire young people about the importance of languages.
Mm.
And yeah, that's how football lingo came about in a nutshell.
I think that's so interesting. Like, I find it really relatable. So, like I've said to you, when I was 13 years old, I lived in Spain, and I was a tennis player, or at the time, I guess an aspiring one.
hmm
But I learnt Spanish from a guy called Gabriel, who
hmm
was he was actually a tennis coach and a Spanish teacher. So we would do literally half of our Spanish lesson. I went there without any knowledge of Spanish. We'd do half of our lesson, sitting in my back garden, and then we would go to tennis club and do the other half on the court in real situations. Him teaching me, tennis related language. And then going on from that, obviously my coach would then teach me in Spanish and would teach me a lot about on the court communication. So like you're saying, I think that is so key, linking it to something that kids are interested in, especially at
Yeah, something
your
relatable.
exactly, absolutely. I think that's why that's actually it gives you a reason, doesn't it? It gives you a reason to actually
hmm
learn it. So how did your language background? How did you get into languages? Because I know you speak about 1,000 languages.
I wish it was 1,000. I wish it was 1,000. I mean, I think, and I only started to have this mindset quite recently. And I'm 35. I'd say, I
Oh, me too.
only,
Huh.
oh, okay, 89,
I'm
89, baby.
90. I'm not
'90.
first day of
Okay,
the deck. Yeah,
okay, okay,
yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think I only came into this mindset of how valuable languages are, in the last decade or so, so not too long.
Mhm.
Um, but I always had a predisposition. So I had a cheat code when it came to languages. That was that I was born in Germany. So my passport is German. On paper, I'm German, and I
Mhm.
lived there for the first 14 years of my life. My parents are from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the official language is French and the tribe language is Lingala.
Okay.
So growing up, or from birth, I had three languages that I heard and spoke. Well, not so much spoke, but at least heard quite actively. I
Yeah.
was more I was more always speaking in German to my
Oh,
parents when
interesting.
they spoke to me in French
But
or
you
Lingala.
were sensitized. You were kind of you prepped to understand them, and
Yeah,
it's interesting.
hundred
So yeah,
percent,
yeah,
100%. And yeah, with that predisposition, as you know, once you learn one language, forming connections in other languages, um, almost subconsciously becomes a lot easier. Because when I was then going into secondary school, I started to learn English, like everyone does in Germany.
yeah,
So what people have to know that in European countries, everybody that goes to school picks up a second language. You know, a lot of people that I grew up with in my neighborhood, they were immigrants,
yeah,
so it was normal for us to speak a second language, which is why, as I'm telling you, I never thought of it as anything special. It was
sure.
something that everybody around me was actively doing. It is only now, because I live in an English speaking country with the attitude that surrounds me,
Mm.
that I now know that I have something special on my
There you
hands.
go.
Yeah.
Superpower, man. It's
Um,
it is,
yeah.
and also it's like you're so used to like that mix of cultures as well, obviously, which is a thing that in certain areas in England it's still a struggle, to kind of
Yeah.
get going. But that it shows you have that intercultural competence as well from a young age. You were
hmm
very aware that there were different cultures and different languages going on, which is obviously served you really well.
Yeah, but then moving to Birmingham only complemented that, because
Hmm.
Birmingham is the most diverse city in the UK, right after
Sure.
London.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so it didn't really change from where I grew up in the west of Germany, where the cultural settings are also quite diverse. But by the time I was 14, I was able to understand at least four languages um, fluently. Not able to speak them fluently yet, because, as I said, I didn't start to practice until I was already in my mid 20s.
Yeah.
When I was 19, 20 years old. When I was 19 years old, I moved to the States, where I was offered a soccer scholarship at the University of Texas.
Oh, excellent.
Um,
Mm.
and because I was based right at the border of Mexico, it was only natural for me to pick up Spanish as well.
Definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
when I then graduated, I then also learned Portuguese because it was so similar to Spanish and French.
Yeah,
And because my grandparents are from Angola, again, I thought, why not learn Portuguese to
of
connect
course.
with the cultural backgrounds that I've to that part of the world as well. So yeah, I'm currently sitting on six languages.
God, that is fantastic, and I've heard you speak them as well in your videos. I think it's excellent.
Yeah.
You know, it does inspire kids when they see someone doing that. They're kind of like, wow, this it is a superpower to have. And it allows you to connect with so many more people. Like you said, for you, that was a relevance to you was to be able to communicate with people in real life situations, wasn't it? And
Hmm.
what I find interesting as well is how you go back to how you were saying how it was all about you would understand lots but couldn't necessarily speak it for a while. And I think that is actually how I'm trying to teach more in that way now. It's all about input initially. It's all about without too much expectation and producing the language, because you
Hmm.
do learn, and then you build up your confidence. You go, oh, I can do this now. So it is definitely that way round, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah, I
input
agree.
first. So
I
um,
agree.
so yeah. So you were a language teacher as well for a while.
Yeah, I'm actually also teaching part-time now,
Oh, amazing.
um, at the moment because I'm not coaching full-time anymore at the moment
Right.
at Shrewsbury. So I'm the under 16s coach at Shrewsbury, but I only do
Right.
that part-time.
Yep.
So I also teach at an inner city school in Birmingham at the moment.
Oh, wicked. That's excellent. Oh, what a nice combination. It's like my dream combo.
Yeah.
But
Do you know what? It keeps me grounded,
yeah,
and the kids keep me young.
yeah. No, I mean it's teaching, isn't it? Ultimately,
Yeah.
it's teaching just in different contexts. I went from tennis coaching, obviously after playing tennis, standard process, and then I realized I like teaching, ultimately, but I wanted to get into the language thing,
Yeah.
and not move around as much. I'm lazy. So, but yeah, no, I think that's really fascinating. But on the topic of sort of your football connection, um, how do you think football specific vocab and football culture can help language learners engage more effectively? What is your thoughts on that?
I think as you were saying earlier, tennis was a vehicle for you to learn Spanish, because that was your passion. Although you had to learn it, because you were in an environment where you had to pick up the language, so your brain tells you, right, I have to learn Spanish and I have to learn Spanish quickly.
Mm,
So that might be a different situation, but tennis was your motivator to do that even quicker. And in a country or in a world where football is the most popular sport, the sport that everyone loves, football is such a big vehicle, such an important vehicle that we can use to not just inspire, but also to aid learning.
definitely. No, I completely agree with that. I think that's really interesting how yeah, that was my motivator. I wanted to be able to understand what was going on. I wanted to be able to connect with my coach, and I realized those sort of connections you could make along the line with that. Um, but yeah, so I think, um, I mean, what I'm interested in is how do professional footballers approach language learning when moving to a new country. So obviously, I was speaking to someone the other day about Lopetegui at West
Hmm.
Ham. I'm sitting in a
Yeah,
West Ham shirt right now, actually.
yeah.
Um, so it's sort of, I don't know if it's very true or not, but he's understood that there were a lot of struggles with his communication in the dressing room with players, which ultimately led to some problems. Again, I don't know how true that is, but I
Hmm.
think that's an interesting concept, and obviously it did reflect in what was going on in the team.
Yeah,
Have you seen any particularly sort of good or bad examples of that sort of thing?
yeah. I mean, there are plenty out there. I mean, if you look at what's his name now at Villa, um, what's his name now? Former
Oh,
Arsenal manager
Emery,
Emery.
Emery. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Emery. During his first stint, well, in his first stint as an English, sorry, as a coach here in England at
yeah.
Arsenal. he struggled, and one of the reasons he struggled was the language as well as the cultural barrier. It wasn't just the language itself; it was also the culture. But if you look at him now, um, 3 years, 4 years later, his English has significantly improved.
Mm.
Which only goes to show, the effect that must have in the dressing room as well.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, with with the communication barrier that has been crossed now.
Mm.
But then there are also a host of English managers who have gone abroad and not necessarily succeeded.
Yeah.
Infamously Gary Neville
Yeah. Valencia, wasn't he? Yeah.
at Valencia
Yeah.
didn't last very long. Um, Tony Adams, who was at Grenada,
Yep. Yep.
he didn't last long.
Mm.
Um,
I remember seeing the video
Moyes,
of Tony Adams in a training session in Granada being very.
yeah,
I remember that one. He was really animated, but he couldn't get his point across because he couldn't
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah. David Moyes as well. Yeah, true.
yeah, David
Yeah.
Moyes.
Mm.
But then conversely, there is Will Still, who obviously speaks perfect French. Yes, again, he has that cheat code, that predisposition.
Mm.
That he grew up in a French English speaking household. So he sort of has that that bilingual skill set.
Mm.
That has taken him very far as a very young coach. I think he's only still 32 years old. I think he was born in 93, or something along them lines.
Mm.
So he's doing extremely well. And then there are your Jose Mourinho's, your Pep Guardiola's, your Carlo Ancelotti's, who are obviously polyglots. Uh, um, Arsene Wenger, who was Arsenal's longest serving manager. They've done very well, and one of the reasons they've done very well is because of their ability to communicate with a litany of people from different cultures
Yeah.
and different linguistic backgrounds, given their linguistic skills.
Yeah.
So those are some top examples. Thomas Tuchel, who is a German, now England manager.
Mm.
Zarina Wiegman, who is Dutch, now the Lioness manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of them have that. They've had that element of preparation for their careers, knowing that they want to do well. Okay, so I might have to learn English, I might have to learn Italian, I might have to learn French, in order to prepare myself for my career.
Yeah. And look at the
And going
opportunities it's given them.
100%. And then going back to your original question, how do footballers and coaches cope with that if or when they move to different countries? Some of them manage to prepare. They prepare ahead of their careers in order to do so. Uh, Others realize that, right, I'm in a new country. I have to learn the language quickly. I'm going to get a tutor. I'm going to surround myself with the people from the culture, so I can learn and pick up languages and cues and cultural cultural based things
Mm.
quickly in order to settle and operate as effectively as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it is really tricky for players to, like I said, to adapt to new environments. And as fans, I think it is. We do have unrealistically high expectations of them to adapt really quickly
Mhm.
to those things. Have you had any? Have you worked with any teams or any players that have you've had to work hard with to get to that point, or have had struggles along the way?
In academy football, not as often as you would in professional football,
Mm.
because you're still dealing with kids. And ever since Brexit, that free movement of minors across the borders is not as prevalent anymore.
Mm.
But there are still cases. For example, when I was at Burnley not too long ago, I was in the under 14s. There was a kid from Spain that we really liked that we took on trial, but the parents didn't speak a word of English yet.
Right.
and it was the teacher that took him to training. It was the school teacher that took him to training,
Oh, right.
and I was the only one at the club that spoke Spanish.
Mhm.
So I was liaising for him, and I was also coaching him,
Yeah.
and I was able to strike up a connection or a bond with that player um, quite quickly because of that. And in the end, he didn't sign, but he was able to stay at the club for 6 weeks and get
Mhm.
a great experience,
Yeah.
which he otherwise might not have had because he wouldn't have had anyone to bounce off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I had the same thing with a French player. He was an under 12. Although I didn't coach him directly, the academy always brought me in, to translate for the parents,
Yeah.
to talk to the player from time to time, to help him settle because he did in the end sign, or he did sign in the end.
Mm.
So I think I'm not sure whether or not he's still there or not because I'm not at Burnley anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is an example of somebody feeling at home, and and being able to adapt quite quickly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's yeah. I think again, it's paving the way, it's giving them opportunities and making sure it does show the importance of it, especially for young people in England as well. If there's lots of aspiring footballers here who, in the school I am now, I think they need to realise the importance of it from a different perspective. It
Mhm.
could aid their career and give them more opportunities, and yeah, being able to communicate with more people can give them those opportunities, can't it? So
100%.
yeah. Um, yeah, so like within that, so what strategies would you recommend for someone who wants to improve their language skills through football, or using is your app applicable to football clubs to use and things like that?
Yeah, so we work with football clubs, with professional football clubs, with professional footballers, with coaches all around the world. That have got language specific challenges and want to address them in the fastest way possible. Some clubs use it as a resource for their players that are learning a new language, coming to their clubs, for their men's teams, women's teams, academy, etc. Then there are also a lot of individual coaches or individual players that just download the app, and it's pretty much free to use for anyone that is
Yeah,
interested, in football. For schools, we make it available for free, because similar to Duolingo, we want everyone to have access to it, you know, um, and yeah, that's 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 um, that's that on that aspect. In terms of strategies to use, Footballingo is a football specific language translation and language learning app. So it won't necessarily teach you, um, to speak a language fluently, but it will teach you the colloquial phrases that are used in the country for football specific terms and phrases that you might need, um, in the football industry.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it won't teach you the language, but it will help with specific knowledge in the football industry.
For sure. No, I think it's a great idea. It's a brilliant concept. So, because I was going to say, going back to what we were saying before about different people who have kind of adapted really well through those, being able to connect to players through languages. I think of Mourinho as a really good example. Who I've read about recently. He wasn't a manager. He was an interpreter to begin with, wasn't he? Have you?
Yeah.
So I think that's just an incredible story how he ended up being one of the most prominent managers of our era. Um,
Hmm.
so who was he? He was a
Bobby Robson.
Bobby Robson at Barcelona, wasn't it? I just think that's fascinating how, and that's again how it shows the power of languages. How
Yeah.
um, the opportunity that gave him because the players could connect with him. The players could connect with
Hmm.
him because he was interpreting the messages from Bobby Robson. So
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible one. Um, but yeah, so obviously within languages there are some mishaps that happen. Have you ever had standout funny moment in terms of if you think of Lost in Translation?
Yeah, I mean, so there are there are words in football that don't always translate over into the language as they would
Yeah.
in your own language.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember I was I was speaking to my friend in this was in the States. I had a lot of Brazilian teammates,
Right.
and the first time they started to learn English, um, I would say that ball is going to the top bins, and they would say, "Oh, where the owl sleeps," because that's how they say it.
Oh,
So they translate it as where the owl sleeps.
how
If I'm not
interesting.
mistaken, Onde dorme a coruja. Yeah, which means basically where nobody can get where nobody can get to. So
Right.
that's our definition of top bins or top
Yeah.
corner.
How
You
interesting.
know, so that was my first encounter with different idioms, because the
Yeah.
Brazilians, they have so many of those, where I just think, oh, that is so creative,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so funny at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was my first encounter of something being lost in translation.
Yeah. Definitely.
In terms of languages in football.
And even with being in the States, the amount of thing, because I spent some time over there as well when I was actually 19. Ironically, we seem to have we've got a similar background. But yeah, when I was 19, I was in the States, and lots of things I was saying. Obviously, unfortunately, I'm from Essex, so half of the things I
Yeah.
say, they were like, I don't know what you're saying at all, and we would get completely lost in translation, even within the same language. So
Yeah.
it is fascinating. I think how languages adapt over, to create these phrases are very very interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, um, so in your career, obviously you've had a lot of experience, a lot of different experiences.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say is as a man as managers, would you have you seen who's probably the best example of picking up multiple languages that has led to their success?
Undoubtedly, or without a doubt, um, Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, and Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah.
I think I think they're top, and I think their success just shows that.
Mm.
It shows how significant languages were in their road to success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it shows, doesn't it? And look at how they can form relationships with multiple different players from lots of different. That really does show, doesn't it? Um, yeah, that's an interesting one about Carlo Ancelotti. You've reminded me of something. So when I was in Spain, um, I used to train. Yeah, where the place I used to train, um, there was. I can't remember. I think it was. I don't know if there was a football team over at the time, but oh no, actually they weren't. So there was my parents actually played also. My dad played every now and then, played a bit of tennis,
Yeah,
and he dug out the racket every now and then. But all of a sudden, there was a lady who asked my mum if she would fancy having a mixed doubles match again with her and her husband, this Italian lady, and
yeah,
so she was, oh yeah, yeah, sure, no problem. So my mum and dad turn up, and my dad's like, oh my god, that's Carlo Ancelotti on the other side of the net. He's like, oh my god. So he was starstruck and going, I've now got to remember how to play tennis. So my mum and dad ended up having a mixed doubles match against Ancelotti and
there,
his wife, and it's like,
as if,
and yeah, it's absolutely. I
as
don't think
if,
he didn't speak much English at the time, Ancelotti, and but he I think he must have been AC Milan manager at the time, maybe, and he
yeah,
spoke about an up and coming player. It was Kaká at the time. He's like, this player is going to be amazing. He's going to be everything. And he hadn't really burst onto the scene yet. He's like, this guy is going to be,
he was
he's the
speaking to your
one.
dad about this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He was saying this because my
that
dad was
is
like,
madness.
my dad was obviously saying, oh, which player should West Ham look at signing? All this stuff, as if, and yeah, he said, oh yeah, Kaká is going to be the top one. He's the one who everyone's going to be talking about. And ironically, there you go. He turned into something pretty special. So, but yeah, there's a funny one about Ancelotti that he reminded me of.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they beat them or not. I'm not sure. My dad was probably too starstruck. But yeah, no. So yeah, what would you say? So obviously you've had a variety of things in your career happen, which is it sounds incredible. I think it's really aspirational your career as well. So you must have a standout moment in it. You think, yeah, I'm making a difference here. Within teaching or within football. What would be that moment you would say?
I think in schools, I am definitely, or we are definitely making a difference. There's myself and my two colleagues. We go into schools and deliver football specific MFL sessions, content and workshops, motivational talks. And there has been a bigger uptake in GCSE options in them
Okay.
picking MFL.
Mm,
You know, as we try to look at those numbers and obviously go back into the schools as well. So we definitely feel like we're making a difference in the realm of education. uh, we have started to make a difference in the world of football as well. Yes, we are helping individual football clubs and individual coaches and individual uh, players, but I don't think we have yet reached the multitude of people that we want to. So once we do that, I can say that we are also making
hmm
a difference in the football industry.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're quite there just yet, not in the same way as we are in education in the UK at the moment.
Mm. But it's going the right way. It's I think it's
Yeah,
yeah,
hopefully.
and I think you're impacting young people's lives, which is a massive thing. That is a massive thing. You're underselling that. I
Yeah,
think it's if there's more uptake, it doesn't it's showing there's kids having more interest in languages. You're doing something really relatable, which I think is absolutely brilliant, and that's exactly what's needed. I'm seeing firsthand in school how you know boys are struggling to be motivated to learn languages, um, and I think this is a really good thing to show a good connection, something that they love. Lots of them love.
yeah.
So no, I think you're doing a great thing. So no, it's
Thank you,
fantastic. No, it's
thank
brilliant.
you.
But yeah, I'd love to have you come into my school some point soon. But yeah, we'll definitely get that
Yeah,
going.
we'll touch base on that,
Yeah.
definitely.
But no, Pierce, it's been amazing having you on here on Language Sofa. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. As I
No,
said, Ben, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation.
wicked. All right, thank you, Pierce. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and thanks again to Pierce for sharing his insights. Until next time, this is Ben Levi. This is Language Sofa Podcast. Adios.